Hello once again, friends and weary travellers. We are back with another episode of Spotlight Chewing, and I've got to be honest, it feels like it's been a while since we've done one of these. I don't know what has happened. Time is a weird construct that we don't really understand. That being said, tonight we are actually traversing time and space to bring you a truly international affair. I am once again, as always, joined by my illustrious co-host Steve. Steve, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing? We are really all around the world today, aren't we?
We are. I'm very impressed that we've made this happen, because when it's just you and me, Steve, we have enough problems with time zones as it is, without having to add in an extra time zone to try and compete with. So I think, we deserve some sort of... I'm going to give myself some sort of medal later on. But with no further ado, we have once again brought a friend along to talk about all the cool, weird, wonderful, exciting, brilliant projects that you may not have heard about but really ought to have done. And this time we are welcoming the book reviewer extraordinaire. It is Mr. Charlie Cavendish. Charlie, how are you today?
Hello, yeah, I'm well, thank you. Greetings from, slightly overcast Sydney today, but as you said, I'm calling you from the future. It's Sunday morning here, so I'm ahead of all of you, I think, so... pleased to be here. Well, in time zones, not mentally, but...
It feels like we've gone very sci-fi for this episode.
Calling from the future, yeah.
So, I had a bit of a chat with Charlie about coming on to the podcast and talking to us about some of the different projects and kind of books, films, whatever he wants to talk about tonight. And the good thing is that because this is something that Charlie does all the time, reviewing books and talking about creators and things like that, I feel like this is going to be a very relaxed episode for me. So I've put zero effort into preparation this time.
No pressure.
I'm just kidding. I have got a few things to talk about.
A few.
No panic. But what I do want to start with is, purely in a self-serving manner, is that when this episode actually goes out, we will be officially 1 week away from the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Spotlight event in Shrewsbury, which obviously we're very excited about because it is drawing nearer and nearer now. And as mentioned in previous episodes, Page Chewing is one of the official sponsors for the event. And we actually got through our official Page Chewing badge buttons for our gift bags this week. So I will be putting some photos up of those on the forums, probably just after we've finished recording this episode, if not in a day or so's time. So they will be on there. And we have been doing lots of exciting things to promote the event. I was joined by a couple of the Page Chewing forum favourites. So we had AJ Retger, DB Rook and Alex S. Bradshaw. We all got together this week for a recorded special D&D one-shot, which was a first for me, and it was as chaotic as I imagined it would be, but really good fun. So that will be going up on the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Spotlight YouTube channel, and I believe it's scheduled for the 15th. But that was a really good experience. It was great to catch up with those guys and play a game together. It does have a book theme. There is a magical ritual and an adventure in a jungle, but I won't say any more than that. I will let people watch it as and when it's out. Very excited about that. But enough about the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Spotlight, because it is very self-serving of me to keep promoting it in this unsubtle way. I'm going to jump straight in.
No, you should be proud of the work you've put in. It's a huge deal. It's a lot of work and a lot of preparation.
No, I appreciate that, and it really has been. Hopefully it will all pay off. People are very excited about it. It's been great to see the positivity and the support around it, even from those that can't be there due to minor inconveniences like oceans and time zones.
Yeah, guilty.
You never know. A few years from now, we might be looking at doing the first international version of it. But,
excellent. Sign me up.
Let's get past year one first. But without further ado, let's move on to some of the other projects that we want to talk about tonight. So I make no bones of the fact that I am not the best reader in the world. this has become something of an ongoing in-joke. So I get really excited when I hear about books that I think would appeal to me. And it may come as a shock, but I've actually read 2 books since our last episode.
Yes.
Thank you very much. It is an achievement for me. I love books. I just don't have a great attention span, and anything that goes over 150 pages, I know straight off I'm going to struggle with. So I was very excited to find 2 books which I would like to talk about tonight. The first is Cold West by Clayton Snyder.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Have you guys read that one?
I haven't. I've got it on my loaded up. I haven't had a chance to get to it yet, but I've heard a lot of good things.
Yeah, same for me. It's loaded up, but I haven't started it yet.
Yeah. I mean, from what I know of the books that you've read, I just think it's going to be an absolute winner for both of you. For one thing, I mean, it appeals to me because it's a shorter book anyway, but it's also a shorter book that it really delivers like that punch that you really want when you just want a good, quick read. Perfect amount of darkness. Great setting, great world building. So I won't go too much into it because of spoilers, but it's as the name would suggest, it is Western set fantasy. There are fantasy elements in it, but they work really well within the world. And the strange thing is, I think because I'd watched the Paramount series, which I've instantly forgotten the name of, but it's the Western series that's got Sam Neill in it. As I was reading it in my head, I couldn't stop myself from reading it in the Sam Neill accent. Is it Sam Neill? Yeah. So that kind of really worked for me because it immediately set the tone. But yeah, that was a really good one. I thoroughly recommend. And the second book, which I wanted to mention tonight before we hand over to Charlie to start going through his list, is The Scroungers by Thomas J. Devons, who was a guest on our last episode. Okay. Again, really enjoyable. Short book, really interesting. There was a lot of unique concepts about it that I really enjoyed. So it is a grimdark, and boy is it grimdark. The world that it's set in this is a 1-star on TripAdvisor place. You definitely don't want to go there. But the storyline was really interesting. It moved at a really good pace, and what I liked was the whole concept that Thomas has brought together of having a number of people who have been through a war, been through a battle. They're all from different places, different companies, different armies, and what happens to them when the battle is finished and they're all left in the same place. And he explored that really well. I've put up a review for it on Goodreads, so yeah, that's another recommendation for me to go and check that one out.
Nice.
Very nice.
Okay, so I do have some other things to talk about, but I feel like I've rambled on enough already, and this is the time of night where my brain starts to go a little bit funny. So, Charlie, what have you been up to recently, and what's been catching your eye?
Yeah, well, I've got the opposite problem. I'm trying to gear my brain up to start the day, coming from the other end of the spectrum. But the caffeine's helping, so thanks for. Well, I suppose to start with, what I'm reading at the moment. I normally only read one book at a time because I don't have the attention span or time to do more than that. And that not reading enough is a bane of my existence. I've probably like yourselves. I've got far more books coming at me than I think I'll ever hope to. If I can live to get to the end of my TBR, that'll be a great achievement, I think. But a nice problem to have. So at the moment, I'm in two. One is I suppose you might call it almost a middle grade book, but it's written by Peter Hartog, who's read the sci-fi and sci-fi fantasy books. He's written under the name Peter David as just to separate his works, and it's one of the wholesome, most sort of down to earth. Like it's really fired up the kid in me. Now I'm just going to double check this, buddy. Now I'm going to be a bit dense here and to remember what the full name is. Of course, it's not on there. All right, I'll come back to them. But it's Buddy the Knight, and actually, I tell you what, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to look straight on my Kindle because I can do that, and we will get the name of it because he'll kill me if I get it wrong. Is Buddy Knight and there we go. Buddy, hang on, where are we? Buddy the Knight and the Queen of Sorrow. That's it. So Buddy the Knight is a teddy bear, and he is searching for his person who's gone missing. And he has lots of friends, and goes on some tremendous adventures under the bed. So I think it's going to appeal to a lot of kids. Either read to your kids, which I did when mine were much younger. They're all far too old for that now. But yeah, no, really enjoy it, and it's got some wonderful illustrations. So I'd highly recommend either if you want something a little bit sort of more on the softer side to ease yourself out of the grimdark I often find myself reading, or you've got a younger family or get children of your own, it'd be highly worth reading. And the other one I'm reading is The Fall of Sylvandra by T.J. McKay, or Tim McKay, which I won't spoil it, but it has a twist in it I didn't see coming, and what you think you started reading, where you end up, is quite a different place. And to me, I love that. So I'm not sure if Tim wants to go into expanding on that quite yet, but I did send him a WTF message when I got to a certain chapter. I said, where's this coming from? But it's very much that genre mashup, which I really enjoy. So Holly recently read The Hallows, your book, and loved it, that mashup of different genres. I'm very quickly finding that's almost my most favourite type of book to be reading, where you get a bit of everything is really enjoyable. So that's what I'm reading at the moment. But yeah, I've sort of started a new job about 5 weeks ago now. So I've gone from sort of maybe getting 4 books a month. I'm sort of doing 3. But the problem I find then is that I'm very good at reading them. I'm a bit slower at reviewing them. That's
yeah.
So I've got to find a way of maybe these guys that do it on YouTube. Maybe that's the answer, is it? Because I agonise over my reviews. I don't know. Hats off to anyone that can write that. Authors. I spend hours. I write it. I look over it. I reread it. I change it again. I'm not happy with it. And then eventually I sort of squeeze my eyes and press publish, and then hope for the best. So we'll see how we go. But I think I've got Steve to thank, really, actually, for this, how this all started. He's a look of shock on his face.
Oh,
but, yeah. Well, partly of it, there was 2 reasons. I think you were doing an interview, this is a year or 2 ago now, with Joel De Silva was on, who wrote Seeds of War, and Samir. So, and both of them at the time were just, I think, about to launch their books, and they were some of the first authors to send me an ARC. I didn't even know what an ARC was till I sort of stumbled into listening to your shows and things like that, and that kind of set me off on a little bit of a path of where I am, partly where I am today. So I really should be saying thank you, because it's
is that am I to blame? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much. This is all your fault.
I find it's to blame Steve for most things.
Yeah.
But in a good way.
Yeah.
I'm very. It's been a wonderful experience. So yeah.
Oh, good. How do you decide what to read with all these arcs and books, and how do you prioritize?
I have a spreadsheet. I'm very adult about it. I have a couple of spreadsheets. I have my tracking spreadsheet to remind what I've read, particularly when it comes to doing end of year sort of top 10s or that sort of thing. And then the other one, I have a sort of schedule where I try to slot things in on when they might be due, and I learned from my first, I think I first started, it was like a kid in a candy shop. I said, yes, to absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And they went, how are you going to read these, you fool? So then I had a lot of very humbling emails back to people. I'm really sorry, I'm not going to. So I tried this year to be a little bit better, and barring a few sort of life happening things, I think I've kept a little bit better on track with that. So yeah, I'm trying to sort of now just to be a little bit more, not choosy, but sort of, either if it's a particular favourite author or someone I'm particularly friends with, or it's a particular one that, I really want to, that's really exciting, I want to get hold of that, I'll do that, and I'll try to schedule that in, sort of on the basis of what do I think I can read, and and do things like that. So and as well as the reviewing, then I like to sort of make a bit of noise on Twitter and shout out, boosting inverted commas, just to help, I suppose, get that sort of audience, boost the audience a little bit. A little, I suppose every little helps, I guess. So yeah, but that's the it's that old spreadsheet. It works. So.
You're never going to find me arguing against spreadsheets. I love a good spreadsheet.
Yeah, I must admit I do as well. I use it at work all the time, so it's just an extension, but it's a good way to track. If you want to know how many pages I've read this year, I can tell you. So it's like.
I think it's a great way to feel like you've achieved something as well, isn't it? When you can fill in like a little block or something like that.
I think it's just a bit of a control. It's a bit of sort of, I don't know, my way of trying to establish a little bit of control in the chaos that we face, I guess. It's an attempt anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love hearing the origin story as well of, how you kind of got started in this and, through listening to the interviews that Steve's done in the past. And I mean, that's really why I wanted to do this, is to hear, people going off and doing things like that, because they've heard someone mention a project or a book that they might be interested in, and then they go and review it. And, that's how we get these snowballs rolling and people start to get more attention on their work.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it was. I was funny. I'd read like all my life. Ever since I was a kid, my parents read to me, and I've tried to instill that in my kids now. It's a little bit harder once they reach sort of high school age, because they've got to read so much with school and things like that. But hopefully they'll be able to read for pleasure post school, because they don't get a lot of time otherwise. But yeah, so always loved books. My favourite thing was just get lost in a bookshop, and then to stumble on the sort of the indie community, and my God, the quality of books and the range, and just so much out there, and then having that interaction, like I resisted Twitter. I thought I was a little bit older. I went, oh no, that's for the young people. I don't need to do that. And then it was partly Steve's well, that's probably how I got to your podcast. Was I sort of jumped on Twitter primarily during lockdown. Sort of a few of the podcasts, non-book related podcasts I was listening to were, bit of spare time, I'm stuck at home, I'll check that out, and then fell into there's books, and and there's, as well as that, there was I credit with probably about 5 books. I'm going to credit how I started it. 2 was Seeds of War, was Joe's book. The Crew by Sudhir, which is still one of my absolute favourites. I think it's a crazy book, but absolutely love it. There was A Troll Walks Into a Bar by Douglas Lumsden, which everyone will follow me on Twitter. I go on about Doug's work all the time, which is a great sort of fantasy crime noir mashup. It's sort of a 1950s alternate America where dragon lords effectively taken over the world, and there's trolls and elves and all sorts of werewolves and witches and crazy stuff, all done as if sort of Philip Marlowe was sort of sort of thing. So it was so there's that series of 7 books. I think it's just finished, and he's got a new book coming out, so that was great. And then the other one was Bloodlines, which Peter Hartog wrote, which was a sort of sci-fi fantasy mix with a sort of central character called Doc Holliday. It's absolutely batshit, but I loved it, absolutely loved it. But to actually then be able to reach out to the authors and get that feedback, I was like, whoa, hang on, this is a whole different world. It was like little huge light bulb went off in my head, and exponentially went from there. And I started just putting a few reviews on Goodreads and Amazon, and then Jamdi asked me to host some of my posts on his site, Jamreads. So that was the first sort of large R, and I still think I'm very much a small R reviewer compared to a lot of people. So started there, and that did that for a little while, and then David from Fanfi Addict sort of reached out and went from there, and I sort of had a foot in 2 camps for a bit, and then I thought actually it's probably better I'll sort of align a little bit with the Fanfi Addict guys. So it's a great bunch and a wonderful community in itself. The chats there, I probably can't say probably, but hilarious. A lot of focus on cannibalism for some reason, but but that's great. So that's sort of, it snowballs, as you said. Just don't ask. I probably shouldn't have even said that much. And it's funny how it just sort of expands in areas that you never would have expected. As a result of that, I think it was end of last year. We were flying over to see my family in the UK, and we stopped in San Francisco. So I had breakfast with Doug in San Francisco, which was amazing. Got to meet him in person. So and then when I was in London, I caught up with Tom Bookbeard, who was there. Joel, we went for a few beers. That was this sort of funny sort of sliding doors moment where you went from interacting with people to actually meeting in person, which was great. So but none of that would have happened if I hadn't sort of tuned into certain podcasts and reached out to some authors and said, hey, it blew my mind that I could get a book that no one had read yet. That was just a concept that I was like, this is amazing. Why did no one tell me about this? So yeah, there you go. There's my origin story, if that's of any interest.
Yeah, I mean that's great. I mean, how does that make you feel, Steve, knowing that there's people listening to what you're doing and then going out and kind of branching off and doing their own thing?
Well, it blows me away because I never even thought that would happen, much less. But no, it's great to see that just a spark created something else, and Charlie seems to be having fun. Went from someone just listening to a random interview to now you're into cannibalism. So anything can happen.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Yeah. It can take you in unexpected directions.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the natural leap, isn't it, from one to the other?
Yeah, it's like peanut butter and jelly. Like reading books, reviewing books, and cannibalism. It's like it's all
Yeah, that's it. It's just standard stuff. So, one thing that I was interested in, and I'm actually interested to hear this from both of you because I don't think I've ever actually asked you this before, Steve, but when you are kind of reading books, what is the format that you find like the easiest to read? So are you paperback readers? Are you Kindle? Are you audiobook people?
Lately, I've been trying to do more audiobooks because, as Charlie knows, because he follows me on Strava, I do a lot of bike rides.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to listen to more audiobooks when I can, just because I can do that and get my miles in. But preferably, I like trade paperbacks is my ideal, just because it has the flop factor and it just kind of feels good in your hand, and so that's the preferred method. But I mean, I think my least favorite is mass market. Other than that, I'm fine.
Too big. Yeah, look, I've not massively got into audiobooks. For some reason, I just find that I don't know, tune out, but excuse me, it's not my preferred one. I've listened to a couple ones which I've really enjoyed, but I think to be like when I'm running, I often listen to my podcasts and things like that, and if you tune out a little bit, it doesn't matter too much. I think sometimes I get in a bit of rhythm, and I think with an audiobook, I like to sort of be present, and sometimes I sort of go off in my own head a little bit when I'm running and stuff like that. So, so probably, I mean, I'd say probably 80% of my time's reading, probably on my Kindle or ebook reader. Just I think because a lot of review, particularly being here in Australia, a lot of the books I do get are e-copies. A massive thanks to the few authors that have sent me physical ones, because I know often that's quite considerable cost to them. So that's extra special when I get that. I think just moving out and around, it's a bit easier to have the ebook. But what I find is, particularly if there's books that I really enjoy or I find very special, then I quite like to go and seek out either a special edition or a hardback or something like that of those books as you add to the collection. I've sort of focused a little bit more on getting some of those and signed if I can. That's another little byproduct of this endeavour. Sort of, my wife goes, not more books, and I say, I didn't pay for these ones. But yeah, I promise. But yeah, so that's probably it. Yeah, it's a bit more ebook heavy than it used to be. Unless if I'm on holiday or something like that, then nothing quite beats sitting by a beach pool with a physical copy in your hand is pretty special too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely get that, and the reason that I bring this subject up, because obviously I did have an alternative agenda, as I always do, is that one of the things that I did want to talk about a little bit in this episode was Livia J. Elliott, who has a really busy couple of months, so much going on. So she's recently brought out an ebook, which is The Genesis of Change, I believe. So that's come out. It's going to be about a month or so ago now.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I'm lucky to actually have a physical copy sitting next to me. But yeah.
Yeah. So that's obviously come out, and that's great to see. That's getting so much kind of love and attention and great reviews. But the other thing Livia also does is they do these interactive speculative fiction stories, which are through I believe they're through the Apple Store and Google Play. So these are mobile phone stories, and they've recently launched, I'm not sure if it's like a series or if it's like a spin-off, but it's called Unearthed Stories. And I know that the idea is they're bringing in different kind of authors to contribute stories to it. I believe the first one is actually Thomas J. Devons, who I mentioned earlier. He's done one which has just been released. And it got me thinking, because this just seems like a really interesting way to consume stories. And I've never done a mobile phone book before. I read on my mobile phone all the time because, I constantly doom scroll through Twitter, as we all love to do of an evening. But I'm really intrigued by this whole concept.
I'm the same. I've looked at that and I thought it sort of takes you back a little bit to those choose your own adventure books I used to read. Show my age a little bit as a kid. That there was a bit more manual approach to the story, I suppose. But be able to have read the same thing different ways and get a different outcome or a different experience from it. And I think I'm going to have to check it out myself, because I thought, how does this work? Like, it sounds like a very intriguing concept, and I think one that I think is going to capture a lot of attention. So it'd be good to see that hopefully get a bit of uptake. Yeah.
Such a great idea, though. Because people are on their phones already, so if you can engage them on their phone and have an interactive experience for them that they can get through a story, I think it's just a really brilliant idea. So I hope it gets the attention it deserves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love this whole idea of using technology to bring people back to reading rather than to take them away from it. I think it's very exciting. It's the future of reading. Absolutely,
yeah. And it wouldn't be nice to read a nice story rather than, say, some other dreadful piece of news or some other horrible stuff that we find on our phones as a change. So it might be a wholesome change for read something nice not nice, but it could be quite a grim story, but it might be nicer than what's in the real world. So
what is it? Reality is the ultimate grimdark? I forget who said that, but it's true. It's like the ultimate worst possible news. So.
Yeah, it always feels like at this point the real world and the grim dark book community are in competition with each other to see who can outdo the other.
I think you could be right.
So, a little while ago, Charlie, it was about 10 seconds ago, but you mentioned the old choose your own adventure stories. I remember having some of those when I was younger and absolutely loving them. But now you've mentioned childhood books and books from your younger days. I want to know, what were the books that really got you started? What were the ones that got you hooked right from the beginning?
I'm trying to think. I think I sort of did the Hobbit and those sorts of things when I was younger and had that stuff read to me. But I wouldn't be able to necessarily remember the titles, but I remember having those sort of, I suppose, year 6. So what's that? That's when you're about sort of 12 years old. Just last year before high school in Australia, I had this fantastic teacher that just sort of read us these books. He read us quite a few of the Ursula Le Guin stories, which really captured my imagination. And he would draw on my age when we still had chalkboards. But he was quite artistic, so he would do these drawings with all different coloured chalk of whatever book that we were reading. So he would do his own sort of thing. And it was one of those things, just sort of one of those great teachers that really captured you and dragged you into that. So that sort of pulled me into, I think, more of that sort of sci-fi fantasy type reading. It's probably Stephen King, if I'm honest, in my early teens. I mean, I think I started with sort of Firestarter, nice wholesome story. And then I went on in The Stand, which is still one of my, I think, probably, I don't know if it's controversial, but my personally is probably my favourite Stephen King book. Somewhat ironically, I reread it at the start of lockdown. It was a little bit too close to home, but even if it has aged a little bit with some of the technology that was obviously involved, given when it was written. But that, and then that from there, I think read a lot of Stephen King for a long time, and then just various different. Obviously, grew up with Star Wars, so I read some of the sort of Star Wars books when I was younger as well. As I said in my little bio, I can just about remember it couldn't have been the original one, but I must have gone to an early rescreening of the first Star Wars. I can certainly remember Empire Strikes Back going to the cinema as a little young person with my parents. I show my age, but anyway. I did indoctrinate my my own son at a very early age, so that I could go back and rewatch those. So there was a ulterior motive. Yeah.
What about you, Steve? What got you on the path?
I think in my younger years, I read a lot of Chris Claremont's X-Men series. And after that, I think the first novel I read cover to cover is the Alien 3 novelization. And then from there, of course, the natural, I think everyone around our age was during the Jurassic Park thing, and I got into Michael Crichton, and Jurassic Park and Sphere were the two ones that I really liked. And it kind of opened my eyes to what words can do, because you never really think of it that way until something like Jurassic Park or Sphere. And once I read Sphere, it's like, I don't have to see the movie because I read the book. I'm not interested. Yeah. So just read the book.
Yeah.
So
then you get the realization that the movie's never going to be as good.
Yeah, and especially after reading Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Rarely. Yeah, rarely. I think The Expanse, is the only one that I think the adaptation's better, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. Yeah. I'd love those. Yeah. I had that problem with The Expanse of, I want to read the books, but I want to watch the series, and then I had to make that choice. When do I sort of let go? Realistically, I'm never going to get to the end of it if I wait till I've read the books. So I did watch it through, and then I was about halfway through reading the books. But they're different enough to take them as different experiences, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the series is still great. I just think at the end of it, the adaptation's a little. I think that's true for most things. If you have another chance to make some adjustments here and there, it'll be like another draft. So. Yeah,
that's a good point. I actually didn't think of it that way. So it's a chance to tweak the storyline a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's difficult, isn't it? I think when you, especially if it's a book that you've grown up with or that you've had since you were younger, and it's always been kind of a part of that, the nostalgia of youth and things. I think especially when things get either remade now or, there's been a considerable gap before it becomes a TV show or a movie or whatever. I think the longer you have that story kind of close to your heart, I think the harder it is to see it adapted, in another format or in another way.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, definitely. You get why then people get very passionate about these things, because you've read it, you've read that book, you've had that in your mind, your interpretation of it. So that's not right.
Yes. That's it. So I was very much gearing up to ask another question then, which was kind of related and was going to be a really smooth segue, but I've actually forgotten completely what it was. So I'm actually going to ask a completely different question, and we'll just gloss over this.
Well, before what were the books you read as a youngster?
So as a youngster, I know, I thought I'd go away with that for a minute. I was a voracious reader as a child, and I would get through a book, every couple of days. So this is probably why I struggle with attention span now, was because I just sort of overwhelmed myself when I was a kid. But I had so many series. So I had the Brian Jacks series, the Redwall series, which is, I think, pretty much a staple kids' fantasy. It was mice and squirrels and birds, and they were knights and abbots and monks and different things. And I just remember that about every third page they would have a feast, and the feast would last for about 6 pages, just describing all of the food, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. And I also had the full Chronicles of Narnia set as well.
Oh,
so
yeah, should have mentioned that.
I was absolutely in love with this idea of Narnia and Aslan, and you look back and you kind of understand it through different eyes as an adult, but as a child I thought this was just the most fantastic place that could be imagined. And I also read, which I may have mentioned in the past as well, a big favourite of mine was the Robin Jarvis books. So he did a number of series, one of which was a series called The Weird Museum. And this is as close to grimdark for kids as you could get. So if your kids are easily scared or squeamish, probably not for them, but I really enjoyed it. So there's the Alchemist Cat and The Woven Path were my two favourites, and I still have copies of them to this day, which are all dog-eared and kind of yellowed.
Yep.
They're great.
Oh, brilliant.
So yeah,
yes, I forgot
you want to scare your
yeah,
kids.
Yeah. Trouble, mine are a bit too old now. They've got opinions and things like that. So I think my ability to influence them might have waned now. So we'll see.
Oh, that's it. Well, if you know anyone else who's got kids who wants to scare their kids,
go and influence them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Perfect recommendation.
Yeah, sounds good. I remember it.
So jumping then from the past to the present once again, because obviously we're going with the whole concept of time for this episode.
Yeah.
The last maybe 12 months, Charlie, who's been standing out to you then in the indie sphere as someone to watch as kind of up and coming?
Oh wow, that's a big question. There's so many brilliant books I've read out there. I mean, I was just looking back at my sort of top books of the year. We do a sort of at Fanfighting, we do a sort of annual sort of top 10 of the year. So and I kept a sort of a rolling top 10. And it's interesting. Quite a few of the books I've read earlier, sort of, I think they're going to take some displacing. I've really enjoyed. I think one of the first books I even read at the start of this year was Undead Samurai by Baptiste Pinson Wu, who's written a lot of sort of Asian sort of set fantasy before. But that was like, I think if you like fantasy, like that sort of, it's set in a feudal Japan, it's got very much a sort of Rogue One type vibe to it, and zombies, but really cool samurai zombies. It's one of those books, when you read the premise, you think, oh, it could either be really, really good or really like, I'm gonna say it stands on its own. It stands on its own 2 feet as a brilliant story, and it just happened. The zombie, the undead, is sort of another part of the story, rather than relying on that to sort of drive it as such. I think they're great characters, very well written. So I've really, really enjoyed that. He's been on the show before me, D.B. Rook, Callus and Crow. Love that. So again, another genre mashup. Crazy book. Didn't see where it was coming. And told in a very sort of different style of sort of different viewpoints. Almost histories of the time. Sort of little sound bites of the history. So it's sort of a different sort of narrative. But I really, really, really enjoyed that. He's not really up and coming. These are up there, but I read Storm Beneath the World by Michael R. Fletcher, which was just absolutely amazing. I love that. No humans in it whatsoever. These are all sentient bugs, and not one to ruin the story, but I'd highly, highly recommend that. They're on worlds floating above fire. Effectively a world of fire. There's magic systems. It's sort of that was a really fun book, but I really enjoyed that one. As I mentioned before, there was a certain book called The Hallows by someone we know quite close to us. So I thought that was fantastic. Really, really enjoyed that concept, and that's definitely going to be up there of my book. Baptiste's got 2 books. I also read his other series. First one is The Blood of Midgard, which is a sort of Norse-inspired one. Really enjoyed that. It's very much told from the sort of, I forget all the names now, so apologies in advance, but it's sort of almost told from the sort of immortal foot soldiers' point of view rather than sort of the gods. So it's a slightly different shift of viewpoint, and these warriors that effectively go down to Earth to recruit for Valhalla, and they've got to sort of do something to make sure they get back up each time. Get back up to Valhalla to return there. So that was a really interesting one. I read. Oh goodness me! Now let me think now. remiss not to mention a few of my Aussie authors. He's not necessarily up and coming, but Tim Napper. I read Ghost of a Neon God months so ago, which is a novella, but it's set in Australia, so that was quite fun, but a rather desperate and dystopian Australia. So really enjoyed that sort of views on AI and what that could mean, and that was I was lucky enough to meet him at we don't have many cons out here, but there was one of the ones there he was showing out. I think it was called SuperCon or something like that. Not quite as big as a WorldCon or book focused as those sorts of ones, but it was a larger sort of cosplay and all this sort of culture. But there was a book section there, so few of the guys were there. So I was lucky enough to meet Tim there. I think before I forget, Nick Horvath, who wrote Sledge vs. the Labyrinth. So he's a American, I think, from Minnesota originally, but living in New Zealand. So he sort of counts as one of the down under lot. So yeah, Sledge vs. the Labyrinth. That's a book and a half. It's not for the squeamish, but a really interesting anti-hero, you would say. Like, you don't want to mess with Sledge. He's a pretty much a tour de force. But yeah, that was really enjoyable. So yeah, those are probably some of my, not to burn everyone's ears off me rabbiting on, but those are some ones I've really enjoyed. And the last one, I promised I'd mention him. Yuval Kordov, his Dark Legacy series, I think The World to Come, which is the final one, is just came out 1st September, I think it is. Again, another mashup. We've got fantasy, we've got sci-fi, you've got warrior nuns, battle mech. That's a ride. But if you've ever thought you could be emotionally attached to a sort of AI in a battle walker, I would have challenged myself to do that beforehand. But the way it's written, you feel a real sort of connection with these non-human characters, if you will, and really enjoyed that. So that's a series I'd highly recommend if you haven't had a chance to start it yet. Now that all three are out, so yeah.
I mean, I'm loving this. This is absolutely great, because this is exactly what I want this show to be about, and what this podcast to do is to just have these great lists of amazing, authors and creatives and artists. So I have to ask at this point, though, Charlie, you've mentioned the genre mashups a few times, and you've mentioned quite a few books there where you've really enjoyed that kind of concept of bringing two different genres together. What's the genre mashup that you're waiting for?
Ooh, that's a good question. I could counter it with I don't know yet, because I haven't found it, but I'll know when I do. But I think that there's a couple of ones I'm really enjoying. I mean, I've enjoyed that sort of that fancy Western mashup. There's a couple of books that I've read recently, or a couple I want to read in that space. Have been really enjoyable. But I think going back to that sci-fi fantasy matter, that's one that really I think interests me, because you've got sort of the sort of absolute of sci-fi, and I say absolute, but the sort of, it's technology based, it's known, if you're quantifiable, being mixed in with the fantasy, which is absolute opposite of unknowing or unquantifiable. How powerful is something? What is possible? So I think the meeting of the two, when it's done well, is I find really quite interesting. And then you can throw a bit of dystopian in that as well. That's always a good fertile ground for stories, I think. I always think enjoy that. I don't know if that's because, as we said earlier, the reality, well, cheer up, it could be worse. We could be we could be living in the aftermath of the apocalypse or something like that. So maybe that's why we like it so much.
Mm-hmm. What
about you, Steve?
What about you guys? Do you have any? Yeah.
I was afraid you put me on the spot. I was trying to. I think having a fantasy thriller might be fun.
Yeah, I could see that. I'd be interested to see people playing around more with time, like not timelines necessarily, but the expectation of what genres belong in what timeline. So I would like to see We have seen some, you know, where it's like superheroes in kind of Gaslamp era or kind of early 19th century, because we had things like Carnival Row and the Nevers. I'd like to see something like superheroes in Neolithic times, you know, cavemen superheroes. How's that going to work?
Yeah, excellent. We'll put it out there. It'll come.
Yeah. That's it. I've put it out there into the universe now. So next year we'll see the first caveman superhero mashup.
Yeah, absolutely. I was trying to remember what I read used that graphic novel. It was sort of, they did the similar thing where it was like Batman in a gas lamp type scenario. So you didn't have all the same level of gadgets that he's got now. It was more almost steampunk type, that leading towards that. Maybe not quite steampunk, but yeah, that was quite enjoyable as a sort of, you know, that vigilante sort of thing. I mean, we're talking about this. I've read recently, it's a bit of a segue, but The Last Shield by Cameron Johnson, which is sort of billed as sort of Die Hard in a fantasy castle, and has one of the most badass female heroines. I think my comment was since Ripley Briar there. She's awesome, and that, yeah, it's quite close. It's yeah, you can see the comparisons with Die Hard, but it is in a fantasy castle, so you've got that sort of almost heist type scenario going on there, and effectively only really one person that's able to do anything about it. So you know, that I'd highly recommend checking that one out. That's sort of another good one. But yeah, no, I think cavemen superheroes. That's the one we're going to have to see.
Yeah,
put it out
I
there.
think so. And
well, maybe you're just going to have to write it yourself, Holly.
Maybe. It's funny you should mention heists, because that's something I really do. I love a good heist story, and I would love to see more medieval heists. Yeah, in the fantasy castle, Ocean's 11, in a medieval siege. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, so I'm trying to remember now. I'll have to look at the Luke Arnold wrote some of the Fetch Phillips, I think, novels. That has a sort of elements of that a little bit, and I forget the other one. There's another book it'll maybe come to me later, but it had that sort of almost a sort of heist / trickster sort of element, but set in that fantasy thing. No, my brain's gone blank. If I don't write it down, I can never remember what it is. But yeah, definitely, I'd be the same. I think that would be a lot of fun.
This is what I love about this community and the book world, is that it doesn't matter what you're looking for. You can say to someone, I'm looking for a Western with dinosaurs and guns and skateboards, and someone out there has written the book that you are looking for. It is just a case of being able to find it.
I think it might have been Douglas Blumpton when we were chatting, was talking about that, or I don't know if he's the first to say it, but you know, I think his advice to people has been in the past to go, write the book that you want to read yourself, and I think that's what a lot of indie authors are doing so well, because the likelihood is if you enjoy it, someone else is probably going to enjoy it. Now that might only be 5 other people, depending how niche you go, but it probably won't be. And you know, I think that's what's I find so encouraging and engaging. You know, I'd never particularly thought of myself as a particularly creative person. You know, my brother's very artistic, but wasn't really the thing. But I think, you know, just being immersed and involved and interacting with people, you know, such as yourselves, is very is good for the soul, I think. You know, and gives you a nice sort of outlet to everything else, I think, which is part of the reason why I enjoy it. So yeah, go and write it, people. We'll read it.
Yeah.
And as much as I know you don't like it when I do this, Steve, I'm going to jump over to you now, because I want to know what it is that you've been reading or watching or listening to this week that's really sort of grabbed your attention.
Well, to be honest, I'm on a little bit of a book hangover, because I finished The Unholy Consult again for the second time, and we had a discussion for it, and there was so many things that I missed the first time, and so I'm a little bit of a book hangover, but I have been reading Children of Memory too, and I did get a copy of the new Ken Liu book from his publisher, it's a translated work, and I've started that one, but I've been in a little bit of a hangover this week. But I have been reading Swamp Thing, Ellen Moore Swamp Thing. But yeah, I'm a little bit of a hangover right now, so I have to ease back into things. But yeah,
find the next thing.
Yeah, and I can imagine that is a problem because, you know, when you're trying to consume so many different books, especially when you're getting things like ARCs or, you know, pre-releases, the book hangover must be a real issue sometimes. So, you know, how do you get past that?
I think before I would try to get over the hangover quicker, but now I just kind of let it run its course, and not to try to put too much pressure on myself to keep up or to get into the next thing, and just take a little break, read short stories or comics or I don't know, something easy just to kind of ease back into it, but not be in a rush. And audiobooks help too, just to kind of throw one on and listen. So yeah, I'm just trying to be patient with myself. I think that's the biggest thing, is just trying to slow down a little bit and absorb and try to not worry so much about how many pages I read, but more about how much I take in and enjoying the journey more than the destination, I guess you can say.
Yeah, I'd say I think in the past I was like, yeah, got to read the next one. Yeah, it was about getting to the end and not, you know, I think that now you're trying to sort of either tell people about, or indeed if you're doing a review, I've done sort of a couple of alpha and beta reads, and that was a little bit different because you're sort of having to be a bit more switched on, make some notes as you go along, because someone's asking you for feedback. I'm still dumbfounded anyone wanted to ask me to do that, but I was a sucker for the I'll put your name as a character in the story, so I was like, yep, okay, I gotta get my claim for immortality there. So but I think sometimes also just going through the novella routes, that can often be quite a good way to do it, and those sorts of things. So but yeah, my upper was I was a sucker for. I read for and now I've got to find the was it Ocean of Others now? Which Joshua Scott was wrote, and then the follow-up To Burn All Belief. That's it. That's the follow-up to that. So I was able to do some alpha reading on that, and there's I think there's a Cavendish paladin who appears briefly in one paragraph. I was like, yeah, I made it.
That's so cool.
I said, I don't mind what you do, but you kill me off. Come on, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to go out in a blaze of glory, you know. The red shirt on Star Trek, that's fine, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where's he gone? Oh, he's been sort of squashed by a dragon or something, you know. Jump into something, or sometimes just a complete change. You know, if it's been some medieval fantasy, swap into some sci-fi or horror or whatever it might be. Just go into something different. Sometimes is quite a good way just to engage slightly different part of you or something like that. You know, for me anyway. But yeah, change. But yeah, having your name in the book is living forever, because absolutely,
Michael Fletcher asked me what my name was, and he's like, I'm going to put you. I'll name a character. I was like, please kill that character horribly somewhere.
Isn't it funny? As soon as you get the offer, I'm like, yep. You know, Hayley Newell did. I think there's a Charlie appears in one of the books, her books of the Curse of the Fallen series. And
H.C. Newell.
Yeah. So I've loved her books, and again, she's another one that was very early on that I got into, and I went right. Yep, I've got all the special author editions now of her books, and I got a little mention in there, which was fantastic. I was like, you know. But even just cool. Sometimes, I've been lucky enough once or twice now to appear in an author's acknowledgement. So Yuval did that in his last book. He didn't tell me till I got to the end and went, like a little moistening of the eyes. I was like, that was a little bit of a thrill. And it's, you appreciate how much work it, I don't need to tell you, Holly, but how much work people put into these books to have that sort of help them, maybe you helped a little bit or supported people. I think is quite a nice thing, and not expected at all, but obviously very heartwarming when it does happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it must, there must be a sense of pressure, even, when you do try to pace yourselves and have that kind of time where you're slowing down. There must be that sense of pressure because, when an author knows that you've got their book and they're waiting for that review to come out. And at the end of the day, you know, people like yourselves, that you're doing what you do for the love of it. You're not doing it to make a profit. You're not doing it to make money. You're doing it purely to spread the joy.
If you could tell me how I could, then I'd do it tomorrow. but then maybe it wouldn't be as much fun.
Well,
But that's it. Yeah.
There's lots of bad actors out there that are making a profit on unsuspecting authors, and that's just it's really terrible what's happening. So it's great when people do it for the fun, because there is no, it's just the enjoyment of reading and of spreading the word for things you love. So that's what's special about it.
I don't think that's powerful as well. If you really feel passionate about it, then you're going to champion something because you enjoy it, or you want other people to enjoy it. At least that's why I love why I'm doing it. And just saying, hey guys, look, there's some amazing stuff out there. Take it or leave it, but you know, for what it's worth, this is what I think. Yeah.
It all feels very wholesome today on this show.
Yeah. We can change that. Yeah.
Don't know what's going on there. One thing I do want to quickly just jump onto, because I'm absolutely thrilled that we've been able to talk about so many amazing authors today and so many amazing books. But one thing I did find this week, when I say I found it, I made my husband find it, because he goes off and searches the internet for interesting things for me. Have either of you come across? It's a short film, and it's called The Gunfighter. It's by Eric Kissack. I don't know if you've come across this before.
No, I haven't.
So I watched this yesterday, actually, and it had me in absolute stitches. So it's only about 9-10 minutes long, so it is literally a short film.
Yeah.
But it's narrated by Nick Offerman, and it's a Western set, so I'm not going to give too much away, because it's very easy to spoil a 10-minute movie.
Yes.
But it's a comedy, and it's hilarious, and it's probably not something you want to listen to while you're at work or while the kids are around. But it's for just 10 minutes of a quick watch, something that's going to put a smile on your face. Really recommend it.
Excellent. Oh, that'd be good. Yeah, I don't know. Now I'm trying to read more. I'm probably watching less. Like everyone, I've got a million streaming platforms and things like that. But I very find so it'd be good to, again, something that's bite-sized, consumable like that would be quite fun. I think fit in between something. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That pretty much brings me, I think, then to my list of projects that I wanted to shout out today. As I mentioned, I did keep it quite small, because I knew that Charlie was going to come through for us, and you absolutely did.
Yes.
Don't know about that, but anyway, thank you. I'll take that.
I know every time we do an episode, Steve has the list of all the things that we've mentioned, books, artists, websites, and I mean, you've got to be getting on for a full page this time there, haven't you, Steve?
Yeah, I have I've been writing down timestamps and book titles and things, so I can.
That's how you do it. Yeah.
So
if you want, I've got the links. I'll send them.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Steve just
always sends me like a wall of text. Like, here's the ones on it. It's like this big wall. It's like the classic wall of text hits you for X amount of damage. Wall of text says to you, you're dead. That's like Holly's message every time we have an episode.
Yeah, pretty much. I just send a list and say, this is all the stuff that I need to talk about, all the stuff I want to mention, and then Steve goes off and does all the hard work of actually time-stamping everything and putting the links up, and it's an absolute pleasure to
unsung hero.
To have someone who does all that, and does it with a bit of positivity.
Well, he's smiling now, so we'll assume he's doing it with positivity.
Yeah, we assume. That's it.
We'll assume that, yeah.
Get off the call. Bloody hell.
So, quite obviously, we have got to the part of the night now where my brain starts waffling on about any old nonsense that I can think of. So, I think I'm going to just fire off one last question for the both of you, actually. And then we'll probably do a bit of a wrap-up. So I'm quite interested to see that not only do we have the SBFBO, which obviously has been going for a while and has got a massive following There is also the science fiction version of it as well. But they are also now bringing out a historical fantasy version of it, I believe.
Oh, really?
But,
Okay.
yeah, well, this I'm not quite sure of the ins and outs of it. I probably should have researched it before I mentioned it. But I do know that on the forums there has been a conversation going on about the fact that this historical fantasy contest is going to be taking place. And I was interested to know from both of you, what are either some of the authors that you've seen coming out of these competitions that have really kind of resonated with you, or who are some of the authors that you think that are in this year's competitions that you might know about, who you think could be in with a shot? Who would you put your bets on?
Cool. Well, if you do SBO for a minute, I'll be a little bit conflicted because he's on our team. But Adrian's Mushroom Blues, I think, is going to have to be there or thereabouts. Again, another mashup, just to be original there, Charlie, but return to a theme. But you know, that was a fantastic book. I don't know if you've had the chance to read it, but really enjoyed that. Again, you know, you've got to sort of. For me, it had a little bit of that vibe. I don't know if you remember that film, Alien Nation, with James Caan. It had that sort of, you know, I suppose, racist suspicion of another race and the cops having to be forced together, but and a mystery, you know, thriller sort of all wrapped into there. So I know that I think seems to be doing well and seems to be climbing up the ranks. So I think that one might not do quite well. But yeah, I've been intrigued with the historical fantasy. I mean, I've loved, you know, favourite TV series of mine was Last Kingdom, and which is obviously based on Bernard Cornwell's books. So I think, you know, that would be one to be quite interesting. It'd be interesting to see how what the parameters and rules around what qualifies and doesn't. But yeah, I mean, why not? I'd say more the merrier. You know, if it gets some more authors out there, gives you another platform. Hopefully, it might be easier to get into than some of them. I know, you know. But yeah,
that'd be tough. So, do they? I guess in the future they plan on making different categories for the awards and breaking things up, or is it just?
I mean, as far as I can tell, this is a completely separate contest, so I don't think it's like affiliated.
No.
I just think that people are kind of seeing the popularity and the real need for more platforms like this. So I think that they've just, in a similar way that they've kind of done the science fiction one, is they're going to do a historical fantasy one, and it would be great to see more being, you know, to have a horror one maybe would be great.
Oh, there's definitely appetite for it.
Yeah, I spoke with Marge Chandler a couple of months ago, and she talked about how difficult it is to market a historical fiction book, and when she went back to her publisher, they discouraged her from writing more historical fiction and tried to send her in different directions. But when she loves historical fiction or historical fantasy, so it's great that it's getting more attention and more of a focus on certain subgenres. But I think an author we mentioned earlier, Clayton Snyder, would be. I think he's one of the people I found from the different, you know, I always search the SBFBO kind of runners up, and then I kind of read about them and pick up a few, and
yeah,
so I think he's one. Yeah.
Was it Blackthorn? Was that one that went quite well in one of the previous competitions of Clayton's? I think I read that. That's. I'd highly recommend checking that one out again. So very much sort of sci-fi, but insect-based sort of technology. It's really pretty bleak, but I think that's pretty common with his work. It was I highly recommend that, and I think I might have even come across that as, you know, one of the, I think it was probably SBFBO two SBFBOs ago, that's kind of, it came on my radar, and I think I ended up buying a whole load of books from that. Exactly what you said there, Steve, like the, you know, not necessarily who the winners are, but it's just getting that, picking up some authors that you wouldn't have heard about, or, you know, people start to get some people's radars and just hear a bit more hubbub about it. So if there's more competition, but be interesting with the historical fantasy, is it strict historical fantasy, or historical fiction, I should say, or you're going to allow that sort of historical fantasy sort of, Anthony Ryan type work, which isn't technically what you would call historical fiction, but it's adjacent. It's similar. So we'll see where they land with that. But yeah, more the merrier. I think. Why not?
Absolutely, and I think, if nothing else, what we've established throughout the course of the last hour is that we need more mashups, more contests for the mashups to be in.
Yes. Yeah, a mashup contest. That's it. That's the one we need. Yeah.
That's the next step.
And Holly is going to write Superhero Cavemen. We'll look forward to that 2025. Yeah.
Yes, this is it. We've got the master plan now, and Charlie knows these things because he's in the future. So
yeah, that's it. I've already seen it. It's Just give me a shout if you need any tips. I'll let you know.
It is about that time, however, that we do need to start wrapping up because it is past my bedtime in the UK.
Absolutely,
and
yes.
Go and get myself hot chocolate and read a bit more of my latest book, which we will talk about in the next episode, because by then I do plan to have finished it. But Charlie, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you.
Oh, well, thank you. It's for me, it's a little bit akin to that sort of childhood dreamer at a sporting field, and the team turns around and says, "Hey, come on down, we need you." So it's been a bit surreal for me, but thank you for the opportunity, and very very enjoyable. It's great. Any chance to rabble on about books. So thank you.
Well, Holly knows this. Don't tell us that, Charlie, because you're welcome back anytime. We always have random just chat about whatever. So you're welcome anytime.
Yeah, let me know. Yeah, happy to. If I don't turn anyone, if I don't ruin your listening figures, then have me back.
I've been trying to do that, Charlie, and it hasn't worked so far. So
okay.
Safe.
Oh well, then in that case, I'll be back whenever you ask me. Thank you.
Nice.
Brilliant. Once again, it has been absolutely wonderful to have the opportunity to talk with good friends and put a spotlight on all these fantastic authors that we hope that people go and check out now. If you want to have a look, I'm sure that there will be links and things put into the technical stuff that Steve does that I don't know the names of.
Yeah, the wibbly bits.
The wibbly bits.
Wibbly
yes.
bits.
But until next time, I hope everyone has a good week and enjoys whatever they're reading, watching, writing, creating, and we will catch you all next time.
That's good. Bye.